not an asset that is valuable. And so that's something that you will consistently have to put inputs into rather than it be self-sustaining. And so I've always been in the world, and probably you are too, where like I will solve any problem, no matter how complex, once. But I don't like having to solve them the same thing over and over and over and over again. But when you're in that business, you have to just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and the day that you stop is the day that it dies, which really just means that it's an amplified version of you in terms of a job, which again is fine, but I would rather build an asset that I can own rather than just a slightly fancier, higher leverage job for myself, if I can afford to do it. And so when you're thinking about this with your business, to be clear, it's selling a better or extra version or recurring version of whatever your thing is so that people will buy again. Now, there are businesses where it is reoccurring rather than recurring. Coca-Cola doesn't have mono-subscription, but they know that I buy and I will buy again. And so if people are not buying your product again, then figure out why. And if your business is one that doesn't lend itself to that at all, that's one where I would say, look at the other businesses that are super billion-dollar businesses in your space, that what have they solved that you haven't? And then that becomes your path. And if there is no business that is in your space that sells that one thing that's very big, not all businesses are worth owning. And you might think, wait, Alex, I thought that I had to stick with the hard thing. And so the fundamental, this is a different rock and hard place, is one of the quintessential questions of entrepreneurship is, do I push or do I pivot? And so 9 times out of 10, you have to push. It just means I have a problem that I don't know how to solve. And if you have a problem that you can at least define the problem, then you can try and solve it. If you have an issue that the market fundamentally, like wedding rings, if you can only sell one wedding ring and you have no desire to create more wedding rings and you're not a jeweler, then it's probably not the right business for you. Now, the caveat there is that there's probably a jeweler who that is the perfect business for and loves doing all sorts of wedding rings and then also gets into the girls' rings and gets into multiple rings and expounds from that because they have a specific avatar they can serve. So there's a version of this business that could work. But businesses don't die. Entrepreneurs fade. Entrepreneurs lose their sizzle. They lose their love of the business. And so one of the things that has helped me stay in love with businesses that I have for longer periods of time, and I've had to learn these disciplines because that's what it takes to stick with something for a very long time. And if I know that sticking with something for a very long time is what's required to build this very big thing that I want to do, then I better learn that skill. And so learning to re-love new things in the business, which I like to frame as, what do I not know how to do? And so I love personal development. I think that entrepreneurship is one of the best paths to making yourself better because you have such a quantitative measure of saying, did you improve? And so simply saying, I don't know how to, rather than this business won't work because, is a much more empowering frame. So rather than say, hey, this business won't work because the market doesn't like my stuff, you say, I don't know how to market my stuff. This business won't work because no one can sell like I can. No, I don't know how to get someone else to sell like I can. That's solvable. And so simply reframing what I believe to be problems that I cast onto the universe as things that I cannot change, where I place the finger of blame, you flip to the thumb of accountability and say, this is a skill deficiency, and because it is mine, I can change it. And so thinking about things from that perspective has really helped me be able to fall in love with the game of business because I can constantly feel and see myself objectively get better. These are skills I didn't have, and now I do have this. I couldn't focus on anything for more than 6 months at the very beginning of my career. I'm more ADD than you. I promise. I have no direct reports. 0. Can't manage people. I don't have the skill. The question is, what return do I get on learning everything that Layla has? Well, she spent the last decade doing it. So that's not going to be a good return on my time. And so, but for her to try and learn all the acquisition and marketing stuff that I know is going to not be a good return on her time. And so that's how we divide things up. And so I can go deeper and better on mine. And that's how you start filling out the holes in a business. Because fundamentally, every business operates, I'm trying to give a non-bodybuilding example. But you need every component of a car to work, right? Like, is the wheel more important than the engine? You need both. If you don't have an engine, the car doesn't move. If you don't have wheels, the car doesn't move. If you don't have a chassis, there is no car, right? Like, there's these core components that have to exist. But once you have those things, if you have better grip on the tires, the car will go faster. If you have more cylinders in there, I don't know the car analogies, but you get the idea. If you have a faster engine, the car goes faster. And so you can still have components that can get emphasized, but for the business to work, you have to have all the pieces to go from 0 to 1. But from 1 to n, it's how many of these things are we emphasizing, and that's where you can double down on things. But being able to say, the problem with this business is that this is the issue. We can't get, this engine needs to be a 16-cylinder, and it's an 8-cylinder. Okay, so I either have to learn how to build a 16-cylinder engine, or I got to find somebody who does. Or I got to buy a 16-cylinder engine from somebody else, right? But that's how you have to approach it. And so continually relearning that process has helped me stick with things because I don't feel like I'm in the same business anymore. I feel like every 6 months I'm in a completely different business because the problems I'm solving are different. And so I'll leave you with this one last thought, which is that, number one, I genuinely believe if you love the business or space that you're in, you can take any business to 100 million. I want to challenge somebody to tell me like a business they can't take to $100 million a year. I think you can absolutely take any business to $100 million a year. The second thing is that when you scale any business, no matter the market, at the highest level, your day is the same. You manage a handful of very intelligent people who do their jobs on your behalf with lots of leverage. That's the end result of all of these businesses, whatever business you're in. And so if you're in that spot where you're like, I don't like the business I'm in, you're going to get to the same spot in a different business that you also won't like. You have to beat the boss so that you can eventually get to the place where fundamentally you're going to have a head of marketing, you're going to have a head of sales, you're going to have an IT head, you're going to have a head of legal, you're going to have a head of finance, you're going to have a head of ops and customer success. Every business has it. Different words for different industries, but fundamentally those are the components. And so if you see that as the natural extreme that's going to occur in any business, the idea of switching businesses because you want to avoid what the natural extreme will be is ridiculous. Because if you succeed, all roads lead there. And so that is one of my antidotes for, wait, I should switch. Because my day-to-day, what I actually do, will not change. And neither will yours. And so you have to push through. You have to confront the fact that it will suck. And you have to undo mistakes. And when you undo mistakes, it hurts extra bad. But the alternative is you never fix the mistake, you never grow, which I think is the larger mistake overall. So those are the big 5 that people get in the rock and hard place for business. I see